Welcome to the Superhero Sidekick Leadership Coaching Podcast with Joel Smith and Joe Baker. We're here to help you develop your superpowers. This is the Superhero Sidekick Coaching Podcast. I'm Joel Smith.
I'm Joe Baker. We're not here to be the superhero. We just want to be your sidekick and help you along in building your business, building your not-for-profit. Let's help you grow it fast and really scale.
Be sure to check us out on Facebook and visit us at superherosidekick.com. This is the Superhero Sidekick Coaching Podcast, and we've got Bryan Citrin on the show once again. He's been on the show before, and he's Joe Baker's friend. And Bryan's going to tell us kind of his journey of how he got to where he's at. But Joe, you and Bryan have a history. You guys have been friends for a while. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
We've been friends for a long time. In fact, this last summer, he was up on Lost Arrow in Yosemite climbing with me and Sam, and so we've traveled around the world together. This week we're going to go snowmobiling together, but we've been friends for a while. And I was friends with Bryan back in the days when he was very poor. And a couple things about Bryan is, one, he's a writer on the Forbes Agency Council, and he's able to kind of put out content there for Forbes magazine. And then he also, another thing that I think is remarkable is that he won the 2 Comma Club award from ClickFunnels. And the only way to get that award is that you have to actually bring in $1 million through one single funnel. And there's not a lot of people that have that award, in particularly in advertising. And so I'm excited to have Bryan on the show today to talk a little bit about his story and how he went from being a broke missionary to doing pretty good missionary, where not only he's supporting himself, but he's supporting a whole bunch of people. And he did that not by begging for money, but by creating a marketplace mission where he uses business and he is able to fund his ministry. And so with that, Bryan, why don't you share your story about how you started off at UCLA and what that was like and what it was like being out there fundraising?
Yeah, and so it's funny. So I have my Bachelor of Science in Entrepreneurship from Missouri State University. And I remember when I graduated in 2009, I thought that I was going to launch a business and be, a successful business person. I was the president of the Entrepreneurship Association. I just got done writing like a huge business plan with a good friend of mine from college. And I was praying about what I should do. And I felt like the Lord wanted me to move from Missouri to Los Angeles and essentially work for free and raise my own budget as a campus minister. And I'm like, this made no sense. This was really, really crazy. And I remember I was praying about what I should do, and I felt like God wanted me to do that. And so I go ahead and I call the campus pastor out there because I knew him through my brother. I didn't really know him that well. And I remember when I called him and I felt like God wanted me to move to LA and work with him, he told me that I called him at the right time. And it turns out we fast forward and everything's official. And I was telling him that it was on the bottom of my list for things to do, that to move out to LA and work for free and essentially be a missionary. And he looks to me and he says, Bryan, you weren't even on my list. He's like, I don't remember offering you an internship. He says, I was driving on a 405 highway praying, about to go on a week-long fast and praying for the direction of our ministry. And the Spirit of God spoke to me and told me that I was going to get an unexpected phone call. And pretty much the answer better be yes. And you called me in less than a minute. Minutes, I called this guy. And so I'm here to say that for those who are listening, like, God definitely speaks to us today. And I'm not saying necessarily audibly, but he definitely communicates with us today, and he guides us in our business endeavors. He guides us in our path. And so I knew that God wanted me to move out to LA and work with his campus ministry. So I did that. But I'm like, this is really nuts. I just spent 4 years, learning all this business stuff, getting in debt. And now you want me to move to one of the most expensive cities in the world and essentially work for free? I'm like, this is crazy. But I knew it was God. And so I moved out to LA and we started, working with some of the most brilliant students in the world, mentoring them, discipling them, leading them to Jesus, reaching out to international students. You probably didn't know this, but the internet was actually started at UCLA by researchers at UCLA. And so this is the most applied to public university in the United States, most applied to university period in the United States. And like, that's where God took me to really, spend a season of my life, really, focusing on God more in depthly, discipling, mentoring students, and eventually taking mission trips out of that to Haiti. And so I've actually taken 25 humanitarian mission trips to a small rural village in Haiti, as well as I've been to Vietnam 6 times doing missions. I've been other parts of the world as well. It's been really incredible how I've been able to really give back and really make an impact in the lives of people around the world.
That's awesome. And so could you share a little bit about like how you moved into moved from kind of the concept of being fundraising to being able to actually produce a service? Share that with us, that transition.
So it was funny. I was meeting with one of my biggest donors at the time, and I learned that he was consolidating all his donation funds into like a single organization. And so unfortunately, he was cutting off some of his different individual missionaries to support this bigger organization. And so they told me that they were going to stop supporting what I was doing. Not that they were against what I was doing, but just because they were doing this consolidation. While at the same time, and this was like a prominent entrepreneur in the community back from where I was from. And while at the same time, I learned that he bought advertising from my friend's company for essentially the same amount of money that he was stopping supporting me. And so I'm like, wait a minute, this guy is giving me this large sum of money and he's going to stop, but yet he's spending the same amount of money buying advertising for my friend's company. And I was talking to my friend, and my friend said that I should help him grow his marketing company and help sell advertising and do pretty much business development in the digital marketing space out in Los Angeles. And so that's actually how I transitioned into selling advertising and getting into the marketing industry. But after working in that for a couple of years, I really wasn't seeing the success I wanted to see. And I remember I'm walking on this road in the middle of nowhere in this village in Haiti, and I'm like praying about what I should do, praying about direction, and praying about how I can make money. And my mentor looks to me and he says that I should consider starting my own marketing agency instead of just working for my friend. And I felt like God was already speaking to me regarding that. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing the devastation in Haiti. I'm seeing how poor it is there, and I'm seeing how hard it has been for me to raise money to help these people. And I knew that if I had more money, I could make a bigger impact. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to step out and I'm going to create my own marketing company. And both of my parents and my uncle are chiropractors. And I had learned once I got in the marketing industry that my dad had purchased the domain name chiropracticadvertising.com, which in my opinion, that's like a brilliant domain name. But like he owned this domain name, he pretty much wasn't doing anything with it because he used to sell, TV spots and newspaper advertising examples from success he had in the 80s. But he had nothing relevant, happening like now regarding how to advertise. And so I took that domain name. I went back to Missouri for Christmas, and I met with my uncle, who's a chiropractor, and I said, "Can I run ads for your practice?" And he said I could, and it was successful. And then so he referred me to somebody else in town, and he was successful. And they referred me to somebody else, who referred me to somebody else, who referred me to someone else, and then I start paying for advertising, doing inbound advertising where everybody was contacting me. And before you know it, I had a nationwide list of chiropractors whose practice I was growing across the nation, and it was growing like crazy, all while I was still doing mission work, all while I was still, helping and serving. And so I was able to build this business that I'm helping grow these chiropractic practices around the nation, be very, very successful, while at the same time having the flexibility to really serve, make an impact in Haiti and make an impact in the other ministries we were doing, and really be generous. And so there was an incredible journey, and that's kind of the progression of how I got to where I am today.
So what's harder, raising money as a missionary or selling advertising?
So if anybody's listening right now, I'm telling you right now, it is easier to grow a 6 or 7 figure business than to raise money as a missionary. It is easier to get a doctor to pay $2,000, $3,000 or more a month in advertising than to get an individual to give you $20 a month, $30 a month. I'm telling you that right now from experience. So we expect all these missionaries to go out and raise their own budget. But as someone that's done it both, who's been professionally trained in entrepreneurship and sales, if I was having problems, how's the guy that just graduated from Bible college supposed to go out and raise his own budget? If me, as I'm supposed to be a super salesperson, I'm having problems. It is significantly easier to grow a business than to raise money. I'm telling you that right now. So if you're a business person listening, you need to give props to any missionary friends because what they're doing to raise money is not easy. It's very, very difficult. And that's why a lot of people, they drop out of missions, not because they lost their heart for it, but because they just couldn't support their family, and they were done living in poverty because they couldn't get people to believe in the vision that God called them to.
Yeah, as a professional fundraiser myself, like I think the hardest money to raise is for your own salary. Like if you're growing an organization and you wanna really hyper grow that organization, find a way to fund yourself and really then raise your money purely on the mission. And really for the first, 3 or 4 years of building Storks, Ann and I took no salary from it. We really were living off of our other businesses. We had 3 different businesses at the time that were supporting us. And it wasn't until we had our first baby and just realized that the business was big enough. I think we were at about $1.5 million a year at Storks of what was coming in. At that point, we took a salary, and our first salary was just $60,000 a year from our organization. And doing that, kind of having that perspective that you're talking about, I actually think was one of the reasons we had so much success. And in the same way, there's a lot of people out there who want to start a ministry, and it's like, if you could not be funded by this right away, it will grow so much faster. It will be so much bigger. It will generate so much more inspiration to people because it shows the level of sacrifice that you're willing to commit to it.
Absolutely. But another thing is, like, some people, they're called to start their own ministry, which even in my opinion, starting your own ministry is way easier, because if you start your own ministry, you're in charge. You can choose, what are the causes that you're supporting, and you can apply for grants and do a bunch of different things to raise money. But a lot of people, they're not called to be the CEO of their own ministry. Maybe they're called to come and work alongside of somebody else's ministry. Maybe they're called to go overseas as part of a missions organization. Those kinds of people, they're in a very tough situation because they don't have the power to really raise money at scale, the kind of clout you'd get as a CEO, where all they're doing is raising their own salary. And my encouragement to anybody listening is, find people in your community, find people at your church that are missionaries, that are in ministry, and intentionally support them, and intentionally support their monthly budget and their monthly salary, because they're willing to do the hard work. They're willing to give up their time. Our biggest asset we have isn't money. Our biggest asset is time. And there's people that are willing to give their time for the gospel, to give their time to go overseas, to give their time to be on a college campus. And it's crucial that entrepreneurs, that we commit ourselves to be as successful as possible so we can give these people the resource and the help they need. Because I'm telling you, there are people right now praying for you to be successful, because God's calling you to support the vision that God's put in their heart. And so there are people right now that are praying for you to be successful. There are people right now that are nervous and are timid that come up and ask you for support because of the success that you've had. But you need to be approachable and be willing to go forth and support these people and support the vision that God has placed on their heart. Because, God needs us as entrepreneurs and as salespeople and as business people to work with the people on the front lines that maybe they're more timid, and help them to be successful so they can go out and accomplish the will of God that God has for them, and for us to support them.
Bryan, how do you think we could, how do you think our country or our world could do a better job of partnering businesses with ministries, as opposed to just taking kind of the leftovers or what people want to give just out of their own pocket? How could we? What's a method or model that we could really embrace that will bring businesses more into mission-minded, purpose? What do you think?
I'd say intentionality, and don't just think of it as an afterthought, but actually build it into your business model, where you're actually going to give a specific amount of money to missions. Build it into your business model that maybe you actually pay for, or you send people who are in your staff to go work with a nonprofit alongside of them, in your community, or alongside of them overseas. You actually work into your business model that maybe a percentage of sales goes and supports a different cause, but also you use your influence to impact other people. One thing that I love about being in Forbes Agency Council, and even inside Young Entrepreneur Council, is allows me to write inspirational content, that's published on Forbes.com, to really impact the world. And I've really used that to write articles on there to inspire philanthropy. I've written articles on there that inspire entrepreneurs to be more generous. As an entrepreneur, you know other people that are successful. And so if you are intentionally inspire other people to do these kinds of things, it's going to have way more of impact. It's going to be received way better than if the nonprofit or the missionary comes to that person and asks them for support. And so not only incorporate this into your business model, but also be intentional about sharing this message that I'm sharing with you guys today to your peers and challenge them. Don't just ask them, intentionally challenge them. What are they doing to support missions? What are they supporting to support local ministries? How are they being intentional? And challenge them. What can they do to give more? Because that is so crucial today. We need more resources than ever before going into these causes. And so we need entrepreneurs to rise up, and not only for our sake, but for the sake of those around us and entrepreneurs that are connected to us. Because maybe no one's ever challenged them before. Maybe no one's ever encouraged them to give before. Maybe this is the first time they've heard this message.
That's actually a great message. We really should, as a church, be encouraging entrepreneurship and training it. I never even knew what it meant until, I dropped out of college. I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was the only one. Now I realize that there's tons of people that are actually wired to do something a little differently, to create something on their own, and you are too. And I think we need a whole new concept of just finding those people and lighting them up as early as possible.
And not just encouraging entrepreneurship, but encouraging generosity out of their entrepreneurship. Saying you need to be successful, but you need to be successful so you can give a bunch of money away. And so I wrote the Forbes article, 6 Ways to Create a Philanthropic Culture in Your Business. The purpose for me writing that on Forbes is I wanted missionaries and people that are raising funds to have an indirect way to start a conversation with an entrepreneur, with somebody successful, without having to come in with a direct ask. And so in this article, the 6 pillars that I have on here is I say, encourage your team to give, encourage company trips or local community involvement, better utilize your resources, which means for example, if they're wasting money on SaaS they don't need, maybe cancel that SaaS and give that money to a missionary. Influence, use your influence to challenge other influencers. We talked about that, challenge your peers in business to be generous. I said donate a percentage of sales, and I said diversify your causes. And by diversify your cause, what I mean is, say you're a nonprofit. Say you're an entrepreneur and you support this one really big nonprofit. Don't just support them. Maybe diversify it into a bunch of smaller organizations as well, and see if you can support them also. And so those are the six ways that a business can create a philanthropic culture. And it's funny because that article actually went viral and was picked up by another outlet, and someone actually reached out to me and wanted to pay me to speak at this big business conference on this topic, which is totally random and was unexpected, on creating a philanthropic culture. And so I think that's a really valuable article and very valuable tool that someone listening could use to share with another entrepreneur, and you can ask them, how are they doing this? So you can give them the article and say, what are you doing to create a philanthropic culture in your business? And maybe they're not doing anything. And so it just really opens up the conversation for them to really figure out how can they do that for their business.
Right. Yeah, that's got to be the first part of that. It's got to start with purpose, and then it's got to move out from there, expand from that purpose. I agree.
Well, it's never about the money. It's what you do with all the money.
I've been to Haiti countless times, and the impact I've seen there, it's phenomenal what you can do there. But yet I could do so much more there if I had more resources.
Right.
There's people that I know who've died from avoidable causes. Avoidable causes that if we had more resources, it would have been avoidable. And I know too much. I've seen the poverty in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, where you might have 7 people living in a one-room hut and they don't eat every day. And a mother has to choose between sending her kids to school and between feeding her family. That should never be a choice. But yet I see it every time I go there. And so I'm wow. It just breaks my heart. And I say, this is avoidable. If I could just challenge more entrepreneurs to be more generous, we can make a bigger impact here. If I'm actually able to grow my company, this much more, if I'm able to put more work into my company, to bring in more resources, I can, for this sphere that I'm in, I can help these people more, and find those causes, and don't be afraid to give, because if you give and you're generous, I know that God will give back and will bless your business and will give you success, because, when you align your purpose with God's purpose, God wants you to be successful. He wants you to grow. He wants you to thrive so you can be a bigger blessing. So his truth can be spread throughout the world. Yeah. So his goodness can be spread throughout the world.
Hey, Bryan, so if there's some listeners out there that maybe have thought about missions, whether it be giving or going, but they've just never pulled the trigger or never felt they knew enough about it or knew what next steps to take, how would you recommend somebody start to educate themselves about their options and what they can do? Do you have any thoughts on where they could go to get a better idea on missions?
There's a lot of organizations out there to do missions, and so I would just, you could Google search short-term mission trips opportunities. I don't want to specifically, say go this place, go that place, because there's a lot of different options for it. But if you want to email me and have questions, I'd love to be able to connect you with the right people, and depending upon what you're looking for. Like, I know people around the world that are doing missions in a lot of different places.
Right.
Some places I can talk about, some places are in countries that is actually not open to missions. It's actually, it's a closed country to missions. And so I can't talk about it, but I've seen it all.
Sure.
And so I definitely encourage anybody, definitely do that. But also, don't be afraid to give into missions. Like I create like a special website for what we're doing in Haiti, for example. And so like if you go to HaitiExperience.com, I actually have a video of some of the incredible stuff we've done there, and have like a list of different things that we've actually done and impacted in this rural village.
Okay. How would we get a hold of you to learn more about this?
Yeah, I would say you can go ahead and email me on my business email, and that's Bryan with a Y at leadflows.com.
Excellent. All right.
Hey, Bryan, before we go, tell us your superpower.
I can compel people to give money to stuff that they didn't want to give money to because their heart is shifted.
That's true. I've been given to Haiti thanks to you. So it's true.
All right. Well, hey, Bryan, we really appreciate the time that you've spent with us. Thank you for your terrific story. And it's so interesting to see your journey and where you've come and where you've gone. And so anyway, we appreciate that. If you are out there and you're listening here, we would love for you to subscribe and to give us some feedback, and join our Facebook page as well at Superhero Sidekick. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.